Well, back on August 24th, I started making plans, marking out places on the ground, taking measurements, yada, yada, yada. And now it is September the 10th, and I am finally getting ready to cut my first board for the floating deck number 1. And it is going to be affixed to right here. And from that, I'll begin building outward. Man, it's been a long train coming. I'm finally glad to get into it. And I did your measure twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, then laid the board up against where I'm going to be placing it, and checked my line here, and everything lines up. So I will be cutting this side of the line so the kerf removes wood from here out and not from where I am going to use it. That's just something to keep in mind when you're cutting lumber. I've got a wee bit of a system going on here. I'm going to pre-attach this to the existing deck where it's supposed to go, and I've marked my 16-inch spaced out places where the joists are going to go, and I've gone ahead and I've attached these joist hangers, and I'm just using this dummy 2x6 here to get my positioning here as far as level and then lined up with my markings. And I'm going to repeat this all the way down to the end of the board and then attach it over there. Then it will be ready to receive the 2x6s as I'm ready to put them in and lay them on the camo blocks. Well, after 18 days of waiting and preparation and all that good stuff, I finally installed the back of floating deck 1 firmly against the existing deck. And I've got these dummy 2x6s in here to give you an idea of how it's going to look, just to see how things are shaping up. I put this board here to show the lane where the wheelbarrow path will be, and I cut 4 boards, 6 foot here, and I just sort of laid them out to get an idea of what we're looking at. And also tomorrow the camo blocks will be coming in, and I will set them in place as well, and probably do with 4x4s as I talked about earlier. My camo blocks for here are on the way via UPS. Not sure when they'll get here, but in the meantime I wanted to address the issue of how am I going to put a hanger here. I can install this type, and I run into the same situation when I want to put a hanger here. So I went to Lowe's, did some looking around, and I found these guys. They run like 268, and they will work perfect. I can just put that like right there, adjust the height as needed, and I will have a hanger that allows a flush install here on this end and as well as this tight area. I'm going to turn it upside down, but it won't go in like that. But you'll get a flush install there. Well, I leveled this board out. My next step is I'm going to dig out a place to put that block to be the support for this highest part of the floating deck number 1. And once I got it level, I made markings of where this guy was going to sit. Now once I got into it, I got thinking, you know, I can't use a bolt like that to go in there and hold it, because it's gonna push my wood out this way. So instead, I nailed it. Now trying to nail nails into here is going to be quite difficult. It's doable, but it's difficult. You could use a hammer with a less wide head than I used, but I went ahead and got the nails in part of the way and used this guy to knock them in the rest of the way, and that's going to work just fine. Once we get things set up, established, the right height, the right angles in here, then I will go ahead and use these guys here going in like that. I put in my first 2x6 with the highest rise of the whole project, and like I said, I was going to elevate it with a 4x4 cut at the right height, and it's got one of these 1-inch high plastic footings, which replaced the metal footings that they had on decks years ago. And we are level, and there is the hanger that I used. You'll see I dug out the hole, put some paver base in there, tamped it down, got it level, and then put the block in. What you see here with the nice big fat paver and the paver base tamped down, I'm going to do that same thing right here with the 4x4, which will probably be a shorter 4x4, but we're still going to have that same nice support. My plans today to get done is to install this here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 camo blocks, which I am going to be installing at various spots here. Be digging a hole down, putting some paver base in, and getting it sunk low enough that the 2-inch offset height plus the paver base will be level with this. And I'm going to also level each camo block with the other. Once that's done, I will bring these 6-foot boards out to here. But that's what I'm looking at. Oh, the other thing I'm going to do, I talked about these camo blocks in length on another video, and all about them, because there was nobody on YouTube that had much to say about them. But I noticed one drawback is that these holes here, if they're indeed for drainage, are not going to do that great a job. So I'm probably going to enlarge these holes, and I may put a couple holes up here around the sides. That way, if I use one of these for a 4x4, that's what I'm going to do. The ones that I'm using for the 2x6s running, I'm not going to do that, because even if water comes up here, it'll drain out in 4 different directions this way. Got my joist hanger, the flush one here, installed. Pretty easy. Checked it out. The board's going to be nice and level, all leveled out. And I've got the placement of my camo blocks set up, and I'm going to go ahead and mark around them where I'm going to dig the hole and add the paver base here. I've got like 3 more bags of that over there, so we're good to go. And I went ahead and marked the paver, or the camo blocks, each with a blue line, and these blue dots say blue to blue, blue to blue, blue to blue. That way it's no think for me when I'm laying them out. So the next part is the digging, and that's no fun. One last thing I wanted to mention, this type hammer here with a head this big is essentially very inefficient for nailing nails in this tight space. My masonry hammer with this nice square head, it worked really well for nailing the nails in. Just a tip in case you're having to install. So this is a very rudimentary initial dig with no paver base, so I can get an idea of what's going on. And this is flush in here with the joist hanger. The hole is down, it looks to be right around 1 3/4 inches, something like that. But we are not level. This board is perfectly parallel to that board there, and there's actually going to be another board running parallel to that, and then my 16 on center starts. But what that means is the board needs to come up, looks like a 1/2 inch or so. So when I put the paver base in, it needs to be a little bit higher on this end, and I need to tamp things down. Seeing as everything's okay on this end, I'm going to dig down just a little bit more, somewhat deeper on this side for the paver base, and we'll see how things level up. Then I'll double check with the level on how this camo block is sitting, and this will be my guideline level for the rest of the blocks. Okay, I got my paver base in, tamped down. Now I'm going to put the camo block in and set this wood back in, this 2x6, and we're going to check the level. Okay, let's see what we have here. Alright, this end here needs to come up about 1/4 inch, and we will be good. So I'm going to add a little paver base. We'll be good to go. When you have a small volume of paver base to add, I really recommend you just get yourself a little trowel. That way you can be more exact. Well, let's see if that little bit of paver base I added is going to work. Oh, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. Okay, now I can put the bolts in to this 2x6 in the joist hanger, and we'll be good to go for at least one. And now I have a guide for all the rest of these. I've said before, when you're doing any kind of reference work of one thing for all the rest, like we used to call it when I was a surveyor, that one down there is our benchmark. That is the one that we sight on and turn around and know we're at the right elevation, the right 0 point, so to speak, and then we can line things up as best as possible. Well, I've got my first 2x6 sitting on a camo block, nice and level, and tied in securely with the joist hanger, and nice and level here. I'm pleased. So now basically it's just repeat the process. I thought I'd go ahead and do a couple level checks as I'm working. So where this bubble is right now, this end here would need to come up just a little bit for a perfect level, but I really don't want that. I would rather the slant to be away from the existing deck and going out towards here, so rainwater and whatnot will run this way. Thinking about how did this current set of 2x6s, how did they wind up being a 1/4 inch too low at this end versus that end? And it's not any mistake I made. It comes from the fact that this original deck, these original stairs that I attached this 2x6 to and the floating joist, it is off by a 1/4 inch low this way, and basically if that's a 0 point there, and by the time they got to there, they're a 1/4 inch off. So that's where my error came from, not from me mismeasuring or screwing up. Using that original deck, the bottom step, as my benchmark, as my guide, threw everything off by a 1/4 inch down this way. You know, no biggie. Having to dig down that deep, add that much paver base for every one of these 2x6s, and then get precise on the leveling, back and forth and back and forth. It's a lot of work. I decided to forego putting a camo block here since we were so close to the ground level. I just pulled a slot out and packed in paver base here. Wood being in contact with stone is not going to cause any rot issue like being contacted with ground. And I went ahead and loaded up paver base here and put a paver there, so everything's nice and level. So the next thing that I am set to do is I'm going to cut the piece that goes along here, and I'm also going to measure and mark on that piece where I can put the joist hangers, and then it'll be ready to install. I got a lot done this morning on this threatening day with a tropical storm coming in off the coast. I have been able to finally finish this rectangular section here of my first floating deck, and I got all the joist hangers in, got everything as level as I want it to be. So now the next section of this floating deck I'm going to work on, I'm going to get this long angled piece of wood leveled. I'm going to cut it so I get a flush mount in here. Then I will begin, let me step up here, then I will begin cutting the 2x6s that are going to run here, and lastly from the very edge of the deck. And what I'm going to do, I don't remember if I discussed this earlier in another video, but because this is at an angle, you can't really put a joist hanger on it, and even the ones I saw in the store are not exactly the angle I need. So what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to wind up cutting wedges like this that will be I don't know if I can show it. Yeah, maybe like that's better. So I'll have a parallel surface here between my joist and my angled piece, and then I can put my joist hanger like that, and I'll do 1, 2, 3 of those. So far things are looking good overall, and I will probably do some more camo blocks. I'm not really sure, because if you look, the joist hangers are basically right on the ground level. So what I may do for these guys is like I did on this one, I will just put in a level of paver base, which will get them off the ground, away from the soil, and I will have a good support there along with my joist hanger. Got my junction finished, pretty clean cut and attached, and as I check down the length, pretty darn level, close enough for right now. I'm going to cut those wedge-shaped blocks that I talked about for here and here, and then lastly for here, and then put joist hangers on them, and then cut my 2x6s appropriately to fit. And then as far as the foundation goes, without the decking, and maybe just a little bit of treatment with paver base, floating deck number 1 going from here and on up is, the rain has not let up, so I said what the heck, and I came out here pretty much close to sundown, and I went ahead and cut these wedges here that I'm going to mount on the diagonal board And they will be mounted parallel with the floor joist over there and such. And then over to there. And I'll get my floor joists mounted on them and cut my joists tomorrow to fit. What I'm going to do today is I've got my orbital sander here, and I'm going to address an issue I came across in that this guy isn't perfectly level like the other ones were, but I'm going to take the orbital sander and starting back about here, going to work my way down to here and level things out. Let me put this in a little better. Anyway, you'll have a joist hanger on here which will be parallel to some degree, and that's what we're aiming for. That only took really about 5 minutes of sanding with the heavy grit sandpaper, and we're nice and smooth here, and we're level all across the other 2x6. Is the mother of invention, and my little angled block 4x4 with the joist on it works perfectly. Floating deck 1, or platform 1, is now officially finished. I added these last 3 joists and the brackets, and we are finished. I decided to only use 2 of the camo blocks. Everything's so close to the ground, and short runs, that's going to be secure enough. Tomorrow we're going to start the stair boxes, heading down that way about 20 feet. I'm not putting the decking on because I have a special system I'm using for when I build the stair boxes using this wood here. All this wood is allocated for the stair boxes and decking. When I build a stair box, it's going to slide a little bit under this area, and I'm going to have 2x4s going down and locking it in place, screwing both of these guys together.